Welcome everyone to a wonderful, wonderful event that we got here, folks. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. This is truly a monumental night for the City of Pompano Beach. But before we go there, I'd like to introduce some folks that I work with every single day to try and make this city the best city it can be. And that is my fellow colleagues who sit on the dais with me, the city commissioners here for the City of Pompano Beach. Let me start out with, from District 1, we've got Vice Mayor Andrea McGee. District 2, we have Commissioner Rhonda Eaton. District 3, we've got my city commissioner, Allison Fournier. District 4, we've got Commissioner Perkins. All right. And last but not least, of course, we have Barry Moss, District 5. Like I said, those are the folks I work with day in and day out. We all want the best for this city. That's all we work for as city commissioners and the mayor. This is all about making our city a better place, and that's what tonight is really about. It's trying to figure out where we want to go as a city. We got an opportunity tonight which has been, gosh, probably, when you really think about it, it's been about 30 years in the making. Okay, this is not something that was hatched overnight. It's something that began many years ago when the Pompano Beach first decided to create a CRA in the northwest section. And from that point forward, the idea was set to change the city of Pompano Beach, and property accumulation began in a concentrated area, which led us to enough property being accumulated to actually attract some development interest and try and create a different look for part of our city. And that's what we're going to see tonight. This is not the end. This is really, it's like I said, this is one step in many, many steps over many years, but this is not the end presentation, what we're seeing tonight. Tonight, what we're seeing really is, it's brand new for the city commissioners, it's brand new for all of you. We haven't seen this yet. There was a committee that went through and actually talked with a bunch of proposers, and they whittled it down to 2 proposers, and that's what we're going to hear from tonight, is their ideas. And their ideas they're presenting to us to give us what they think would work there, what they see happening there, what they envision as a workable plan. And then it's time for us to look at these ideas that they're going to present, and then it's time for us tonight, we're going to give our first impressions back to them. This isn't going to be a question and answer situation. This is going to be a chance for us to visualize and see what they have ideas about, and then come forward afterwards and tell them, and also city staff and also the city commissioner, because like I said, this is the first time we've seen this also. So we're going to be making comments tonight also, our first impressions about these presentations. So it's going to be the first get-together basically between the city and the developers, just to kind of give them some feedback on what we think of what they're presenting tonight. And from here, it's going to go on. It's going to be months down the road. There's going to be negotiations. There's going to be further input. There's going to be further meetings, one-on-one with the city commission and staff. There's going to be further public input. And hopefully, at some point in time, months down the road, could be more than months, could be years. Hopefully we'll come to a point where it will be time to begin the process of really remaking our city and creating a downtown. And that's why we're here. And I am thrilled to see everyone here. I don't want to take more time because we've got a packed agenda. We've got a lot of presentations, and plus we want to leave plenty of time for people to give their input. Like I said, it's not going to be a question and answer. It's going to be, tell us what you think. But I'm glad to see everyone here. I'm glad that we are here today. This is truly an historic day for the city of Pompano Beach, and it is indeed a great day for our city. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back over to Cassie. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy it.
Got to move this down a little. I'm a little bit short. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Cassandra Lemasurier, and I am the co-purchasing agent of record for the solicitation. Joining me is Antonio Pucci. He is the lead purchasing agent of record for the solicitation. All communication that's related to this solicitation, because it is an active solicitation, needs to be directed to Mr. Pucci as the agent of record. So the city and CRA issued a joint solicitation last June to select a master developer for the downtown. Tonight, the two shortlisted respondents, Related Urban Development Group and Roca Point Partners, LLC, are joining us to make presentations to the public. This joint workshop is step 4 of the solicitation, which serves to allow the general public to attend and provide input. The next step in this process will be negotiations that we anticipate taking 3 to 6 months in time. And then the recommendation from the negotiations team will be presented to the City Commission and CRA Board at a future publicly noticed meeting. One thing that's important that the mayor also pointed out, no decision is being made this evening. This is for you to see the initial presentations and to provide your comments. So following the presentations, the public's going to be allowed up to 2 minutes per person to make comments on these presentations. And this is your chance to provide feedback on these submittals that you've seen this evening. So please complete the public comment forms that were out at the clerk's table at the entrance. Keep that form with you until the public comment portion of the meeting. You'll notice the form has 3 sections. The first is your contact information. The second is the required disclosure section if a respondent or their team member has made any commitment to you. And then the last section, if you don't want to speak this evening, but you have thoughts on the presentations and you'd like to leave us with written comments, then feel free to fill out that section at the bottom and you can leave that with us. So it is now my pleasure to introduce City Attorney Mark Berman. Mark will be covering some of the legal conditions that apply to this solicitation. Joining him will also be CRA Attorney Claudia McKenna.
Thank you, Cassie. Little taller here. A little bit. Good evening, I'm Mark Berman, City Attorney. With me is the lovely Claudia McKenna, the CRA's attorney. Even though this procurement is located within the Northwest CRA area, I'll make the legal remarks because this is a citywide project and a new downtown will have citywide impact for everybody. From a legal standpoint, very briefly, it's imperative that the city and CRA procurement provide a level playing field for all proposers. What that means is neither proposer shall have the opportunity or the means to influence the decision makers. In this case, the City Commission and the Commission acting in their role as the CRA board. To ensure there's a level playing field at all times, this invitation to negotiate, which we refer to as an ITN, contains a no lobbying provision and a requirement that the proposers disclose any commitments made to any person, entity, institution, or association in connection with this ITN. Because these legal requirements are so important, I'm very quickly going to read a portion of the provisions contained in the ITN. No lobbying permitted as to any matter relating to this solicitation. The respondent, project team member, or anyone representing the respondent is advised they're prohibited from contacting or lobbying the mayor, CRA chair, or any city commission or CRA commissioner or CRA or city employees, agents, or other person working on behalf of the city and CRA on any matter related to or involved with this ITN, including all members of the city and CRA advisory committees. Disclosures are required, and respondents shall disclose any commitment, direct or indirect, financial or otherwise, made to any person, entity, institution, or association other than a team member as identified as required by the ITN submittal requirements in connection with the potentially in connection with this ITN. Just to remind you that the requirement for disclosure must be updated up until the time the Commission and /CRA make their decision on this matter. So you have an obligation to continually update your disclosure. It's important enough that you should also know that if a proposer violates these provisions or any other provision of the ITN, such failure could lead to disqualification. So please be governed accordingly. To assist the city and CRA in ensuring these important legal protections remain in place throughout the solicitation process, you'll see on your seat that your public comment form, there's a section where you're required to make a disclosure if you received any direct or indirect commitment from either proposer, proposer team member, or anyone else on the proposer's behalf. As Ms. Lemasurier explained to you, if you feel you want to contact anyone regarding the procurement, you have 2 ways to communicate your comments. First, to Antonio Pucci, the procurement agent of record, and second, downtown@copbfl.com email address that you'll be provided. The negotiation team, rest assured, will review your comments after this evening on any cards that are submitted. Both Ms. McKenna and I appreciate your adherence to the legal requirements for this procurement and look forward to the exciting opportunities this project presents to you, the residents, and the City of Pompano Beach. Thanks a lot for your time. I know it was really interesting. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Nguyen Tran, I'm the CRA director. I'm supposed to be here to be the hype man, right? To get you very excited about this. Those of you that know me, I'm not that hyper. I'm pretty even keel, but I'm a realist. And this project should already hype you up. It's so exciting. It's not very many cities that really gets to build a downtown from scratch. A lot of cities just don't plan it. It just happens organically. However, we've been planning this for many, many years. As Mayor Hardin put it, it's been 30 years of land assemblage. The key to that was we never let any of that vision go through and have a one-off development. It was always very cohesive and really to maintain that that thinking of this is something better than that one-off development. This will impact more than just one district. This will impact the entire city. So how did we get here? Okay, other than land assemblages. In the most recent years, we created a transit-oriented corridor. On top of that, we zoned this as a downtown Pompano overlay district. What that means is we defined what we wanted to see in this district. We wanted to see the urban form, the more denser residential units, all compact in nature. We wanted to allow uses that you find in downtowns because we don't have that. We invested in the infrastructure. That's the first thing that you always do before you see the vertical development. Infrastructure is very important. Infrastructure is really the incentives to bring those development partners on board. We invested heavily on MLK, Old Pompano, and now Dixie and Atlantic. What that means in the infrastructure is that we've upgraded the utilities, the water, the sewer, the drainage, made the pipes bigger, updated the cast iron pipes that were once there. Why we do that is to build capacity and to allow for future development so that we don't have issues in the older sections like in Fort Lauderdale. And also we entitled it. We went through an entitlement process. That took quite a long time through the county and through the state. But what that means is this area is already entitled for so many units of residential, so many square feet of commercial office, so many hotel rooms. We are ready to go. We are shovel ready for this development. And the last part is issuing the solicitation. You know what they say, is third time's the charm, right? We've done this multiple times, but what's different this time is that the market conditions are very favorable. Market conditions related to housing, market conditions related to commercial development. It almost seems like everything is in alignment, and we are there now. So one last thing, downtowns. Why are we so excited about downtowns? Downtowns are your employment centers. Usually they're your higher paying jobs are located in downtowns. They're your higher density residential. We all know that and we feel it as the housing crisis is upon us. Not everyone can afford a house. If you didn't buy a house before COVID, it's going to be very difficult now. The new affordable housing models, as you're going to see, are apartments because everything is based upon square foot price. So that is where the affordability comes in for residential. Also in downtowns you have commercial, retail, office, hotel uses, and also arts, culture, and entertainment. Most importantly, what downtowns mean they are your economic engines for cities. They keep you sustainable for years, and they build value to your city. This is a revenue generator for us as a city, as a government, to sustain us far beyond where it is today. So without further ado, before I introduce the first presenter, what I'd like to request is that any presenters here, the two presenters, please leave the room while the other one presents. Once they're done, please come back so you can hear the input from the audience and the commission. So the first presenter we have on board is Related Urban Development Group. I will turn the mic over to Albert Milo, who is the president of Related Urban Development Group. Thank you.
Switch over from the overhead over to the screen where we've got your presentation up. Perfect.
Good evening. It's great to be able to participate in a process, you know, as we've been involved with so far, and more importantly, as the mayor mentioned, that this is the first step where not only the city commission but also the public is going to be able to see, you know, what the draft of our development plan is like. But it's refreshing to come to a public meeting and have this type of public participation and attendance. You know, that's not always the case. We do a lot of public-private partnership work. You know, that's what we specialize in, such as this opportunity. And again, I can tell you that, you know, a lot of times as part of this process, it's not very well attended. So it's good to be able to see this level of turnout. As the CRA director mentioned, my name is Albert Milo. I am the president of Related Urban Development Group. And our firm is excited about the opportunities of the Innovation District for several reasons. Now, as was previously mentioned, this has been a long time coming for the city of Pompano Beach. This is not something that started, you know, a year ago. The solicitation started a year ago, but this process has been an ongoing process with your city officials and your CRA in trying to have a vision of what the Innovation District can be by acquiring properties, because it does start with properties, but also by having and making the investments that needed to be made in order to get to this point. And Nguyen touched on a few of those things as far as the infrastructure, right? That's a big component of being able to do vertical development, the entitlements to be able to build the project rather than, you know, discuss different uses or different ideas, but then have to start those entitlement processes. So there's been a lot of work prior to our response and to this solicitation. So we're here to just kind of walk you through a little bit of that, some of the ideas that we've put together, and as the mayor mentioned, towards the end, want to listen to that feedback from you guys and the community as to what you think about the initial plan and the draft of that. But here you'll see one initial aerial view of what we are proposing. This shot is basically taken from here, from this location, from the Cultural Center and the City Hall Civic campus, looking westward towards some of the different parcels that are available for development and that were part of the proposal. Most of the parcels, you know, or a good amount of the parcels are on MLK Boulevard. Some of the parcels are just south, and some of the other parcels are, there's one parcel on Atlantic and another parcel further west on MLK also, closer to I-95. A little bit about our company as a whole. The Related Group was founded in 1979 by Mr. George Perez, and he's still active. He's our chairman, still involved in our activities, but over the last 2 years, he's the new president of the company is actually John Paul Perez, his oldest son, which you'll have an opportunity to meet, and his younger son, Nick Perez, is now the president of our condominium division, and we are building several different condominiums on the east, on the beach within Pompano Beach. So it's a family-owned business, and we still have the same drive to continue to define cities that Mr. Perez started in 1979. That's why we participate in a lot of these public-private partnerships. So one of the neighborhoods that we were heavily involved with is the Wynwood area in Miami. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that was an area of Miami that had been for a long time underdeveloped, and it was an area that was mostly either empty lots or warehouses, and there wasn't a lot of economic activity. Certainly there wasn't any housing activity or new development in that area. And as a company, we saw an opportunity to be able to go and start redeveloping some of those sites that other companies didn't really have a vision for. And we started that with one of the things that we always bring and we incorporate into our developments is the arts, because we heavily believe in the fact that art and culture have a way to help neighborhoods thrive, and it helps bring people together, and it's always something that is instilled in us in everything that we do, in any type of development that we do. So there you see it. We were the first development company to start in that Wynwood area, which now has turned into a very bustling area with a lot of different development, not just of residential, but also of food and entertainment, hotels, retail, and offices. So there's just one image of one of our side murals in our Wynwood development. So the Wynwood experience, and JP is Ms. Perez, just was actually the one who spearheaded Wynwood. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit about the whole Wynwood experience and his vision and how we came about for that.
Thank you, Albert. John Paul Perez, president of Related Group. We've been developing for 42 years. Wynwood is a perfect example of a neighborhood that historically really had no development. It was industrial, art galleries, warehouses. Sorry, I'm trying to catch my breath. I ran. And so we worked with the city of Miami to change the zoning, to allow for vertical development, increased density, housing, mixed use. And once that density was changed, it allowed for more development. This was a neighborhood that had zero vertical development about 8 years ago, and now there's about 4,000 units developed, another 4,000 units planned. We personally have developed 6 projects. We have 2 more under construction and 3 more planned. Mostly mixed use. We incorporated a lot of art. There was a lot of art in the neighborhood, murals, graffiti, and part of the rezoning wanted to keep the fabric of the neighborhood. So in all of our projects, all of the garages and the facades incorporate local artists, and not only local, but also national artists. In addition to that, we also brought in multiple restaurant groups from local restaurants and national restaurants because this area has really resonated with the local residents, where they not only now live, but they also shop and they also work. So it's become a real mixed-use, 24/7 live-work neighborhood, which was the whole purpose of the zoning. There was also no office, and this is a perfect example of our latest one we completed called the Dorsey, where you can see office on the left, parking garage that contains murals, and apartments. We always thought this was going to be an office market that attracted the media, advertising, artistic type office tenants, and we've seen some of that. But in addition to that, we've also signed multiple leases, probably 80,000 square feet of tenants that are in the financial services. So it's transformed not only from really a neighborhood that had nothing into it, but a neighborhood that's diverse with different types of tenant groups, different types of renters, and also different types of office users. So that's just a little history of there, and that's a neighborhood that without the zoning in place, it prohibited development, and with our work with the city, we were able to convince them that this needed to happen in order for the neighborhood to grow. And it's probably the fastest growing neighborhood in Miami today. So this is just one example of us working with the cities and helping them come up with ideas to change neighborhoods and make them really neighborhoods that are for everybody. And one of the important factors of this neighborhood is what we decided to do with the apartment side was do smaller units. We wanted to make sure that this was a neighborhood for everybody and not just for sort of the high end and sort of box people out. So with the smaller units here, we were able to keep the price points of the rentals to a more affordable working class renter, and we've seen that be very successful and probably some of the fastest leasing we've experienced in our history of rentals. So that's sort of a little background on Wynwood. Is Nick here? I'll introduce my brother, Nick Perez, who's president of the condo division.
Hi, thank you. I'm a little out of breath just running up here. Glad we could make it, and Albert could hold us off for a little bit. Thank you for having us. Here are 2 projects. You know, we actually, Solimar is going to TCO in July, which will be our first endeavor in Pompano, which was also our fastest selling condominium that we've had in the history of our company. A little backstory, we bought the land of Solimar in 2010 at a foreclosure auction and really waited for the right time to really launch sales and continue with the development of this project. One of the catalysts that made us think it was the right time was the amount of investment that the city and the CRA did in creating the new fishing village at the pier of Pompano. Without city investment of creating placemaking, private investment will not happen like we're doing here today. So I have to commend the city for putting Pompano on the map and making that a real destination for visitors to come and enjoy and to spur private investment. Costamar here on the left side of the screen, we're breaking ground later this month. We are 95% sold, so it just shows you that people want to be in Pompano, and that'll be done in just about 2 years as well, 119 units. 2 other projects that I can't really disclose where they are, but we have 2 more projects that we're going to develop on the barrier island of Pompano, luxury condominiums, as well as a much needed hotel. So we're really excited for that endeavor. And so we're really excited to be here to show you the breadth of our experience and the versatility of our company like my brother said and Albert will touch on, is we not only build luxury high-rises, but we build housing for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick and JP. So talking a little bit about the vision for Innovation District, and again, there's the City of Pompano has a unique opportunity here based upon the size and of the parcels that have been acquired, and the opportunity is to create that identity and that branding, right? To have an authentic mixed-use neighborhood. You know, JP touched a little bit upon the experience at Wynwood and how we were able to bring those different uses of office, hotel, residential, and retail to that neighborhood, and what that has become, and what, you know, the type of catalyst that has been for that neighborhood. It's the same thing that we're proposing to bring here to Pompano Beach and to the Innovation District. So we're talking about the opportunity to activate your downtown, to make it a 24/7 area with those where it's a live, work, play neighborhood. And again, our plan, as you'll see, it touches on residential. It has an office component, a hotel component, and a retail component. And also, as Nguyen mentioned, it's part of a transit-oriented development. This is kind of the way the city has envisioned, and there's an opportunity in the future for the Bright Line that's going to be on the east side here, but we're designing towards a TOD type of facility, inclusive of the property right at the corner that the CRA and the city and the county are working together on to make it a transit-oriented and walkable neighborhood. So again, we talk about the size of the site. You know, to us, we see that as a generational opportunity. It's not just a one-off type of development. It's not just a small little, you know, project that you do on one corner. This, because of the scale, even though it's not all contiguous, because of the scale, we feel that you have a generational opportunity for smart growth, and we think that we've tried to capture some of that previous work that the city and the consultants and everyone has done throughout the years in the community, and try to bring that into a cohesive type of redevelopment plan. It's, as I mentioned before, everything we do is going to be investing a lot in the arts, so it will be, the goal is to make it an arts-anchored destination. We want to bring in and retain the talent and the young talent within the city. As JP mentioned, we also want to have, you know, housing that is within their means, right? So every city is struggling with the same type of challenges. How do you do smart redevelopment, but how do you do it where you can still keep that young professional talent within your city? So that's a part of our redevelopment effort. We want to, the office component, we feel is going to be able to attract major employers, also to Pompano Beach. I don't think there's been that much, you know, development of offices in the city. So that's one additional economic development engine that the office component will be able to drive. And it's going to have a mixed income approach, right? So it's going to have some market rate units, some workforce units with an affordability component within, you know, that people can afford. But that diversity of incomes is what makes these projects and these redevelopment efforts feasible. So one of the ways that, and you know, our architect is going to kind of walk you through the plan, is how do we maximize the opportunities of the different parcels that the city and the CRA have acquired. And one of the ways that we're proposing to do that is to create, you know, mixed-use districts. So it's not just, you know, one type of use. So there are certain aspects and some certain parcels that'll be single use, mainly like the office parcel, which is closer to the highway, and the hotel parcel, which is the one on Atlantic Boulevard. But all the other parcels, we're proposing to do it in a mixed-use area with a mixed-use districts. We are proposing to enhance City Hall with new space and also make this more than just, you know, a civic use, but you'll see a little bit of the enhancements that we're proposing for this site. We have, what we believe is a well thought out plan for our infrastructure. We've got the expert, Ms. Dodie Keith, that is Keith Engineering is part of our development team and is extremely familiar with all of the different nuances and the needs of the infrastructure in the area. And we also know that there's a need based upon some of the other uses that are happening just to the north of us, that there's a need for some additional public parking. So we've incorporated some strategic areas for public parking within our redevelopment plan. Just highlight of some of the different components. The plan currently includes almost 1,400 units of mixed-use, market-rate, workforce housing as part of the residential components of the development. We got about 138,000 square feet of neighborhood retail included in those mixed-use buildings, with the idea being that we're going to try to focus a lot on food and beverage and bring that activation to the neighborhood. The plan currently has 168,000 square feet of Class A office space. There you see an office building, which is our new corporate headquarters that we completed about 2 years ago. It's in the Coconut Grove area of Miami, and right behind it you see some taller buildings, which were some luxury condos that we also built in the site. It was the site of a former bank, and we redeveloped the bank, built a new bank, and as part of the same site we built 3 condominium towers and our new corporate headquarters. So that's the type of scale that we were able to facilitate on that particular site, and similar to the office component that we're proposing for the Innovation District here in Pompano. We also have a hotel component, again on the Atlantic Boulevard location, which is proposed to be about 152 suites. And that's a picture of a condo hotel that we built in the Brickell area of Miami. So the building, on the left side shows some of the units, and a lot of those are hotel units within the same structure. And that's actually the parking garage there on the right. We have almost 7 acres of new green space and public parks and trails within our plan. Open space is important. Again, and as we talked about before, we want to make sure that this redevelopment is a TOD development that is also welcoming to families of all different ages, and it has opportunities to do community events like farmers markets and other uses that bring people together. As I mentioned, we have about over 3,500 parking spaces throughout the different development phases, including public parking in certain strategic locations to be able to facilitate some of that retail use and be able to draw people in a convenient manner to shop and come to the area. We also are proposing a revitalized, what we call the Civic Campus, with different mixed-use elements, and our architect will kind of walk you through that. So you'll see the ideas to enhance this location, or predominantly the City Hall just across the street. And this is the development team that we've assembled, to work on this project. As you see, Crockett Development is our partner also. Mr. Henry Crockett is here, who's also an institution within the City of Pompano Beach, and we've been working with Henry, hand in hand to make sure that we keep all of the community interests at the top of our conversation, and that's, he's been a great partner, and he participates with us on the whole plan and the whole vision for what we're trying to accomplish here in the Innovation District. Ms. Dodie Keith, who I mentioned earlier, who's also an institution in Pompano Beach. So she's part of our team and has been from day one. And Siskovich Architects is our architectural firm, and you'll hear from Surya Yafar in a second. And our land use attorney is Robert Lockery, who's also very familiar with all of the processes and the land use regulations and entitlements necessary within the city. So we feel we have, you know, a development team that is definitely second to none, but more importantly, it's a development team that understands the needs and the history of this community, and that's an important thing for us as a development company. We're not just, you know, though we have a lot of experience and though we have a lot of different projects that we've built, you know, a big thing for us is always that community engagement piece. And as I said in my opening remarks, it's very refreshing to come to the first community meeting of this kind and see this kind of turnout for us, because this type of turnout, this type of interaction is what's going to allow, you know, our ideas to be better refined and to come up with a better plan that ultimately is a win-win for the city, the community, and for us as a development team. So now I'll turn it over to Surya Yafar, who is our architect, and she'll kind of walk you through the actual plan. So thank you.
I can do it. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Wonderful. My name is Surya Yafar. I'm with Siskovich Architects. I'm a principal, and I lead the urban design and architectural design groups in our firm. Here with me tonight is Marcela Ramirez, a colleague, and also been working on the design of these initial concepts that we're going to present tonight. Wonderful, it works. So we have organized the presentation in a way that we can explain how we meet the goals of the RFP, the phasing of the development, and how important it is to reinforce the characteristics of what you already have been building for the last 30 years in this part of the city. So initially, when we started looking at, it's about 44 acres of parcels that may seem to be disconnected, but as we look closely, we began to see the potential of connecting all of these parcels with new roadways, greenways, pedestrian paths. It really would become a more cohesive neighborhood once we are able to introduce this level of connectivity to this area in the city. We want to make sure that as we make these connections happen, that we are in fact reinforcing existing patterns of roads and streets that you already have in place and enhance those new connections. At the same time, if you see where the stars are located in the plan, we want to make sure that we're not disrupting at all your current cultural assets, but in fact, what we want is to be able to reinforce their presence in the redevelopment of the area. You see below streetscapes, cross paths, sidewalks, all of those improvements are part of our proposal. What we find that is important is that sometimes people drive by here and don't really understand the breadth of the potential of this new neighborhood. So we want to be able to reinforce the gateways and entrances into the area, kind of building upon the historic heritage that you have in place. These are examples of how other communities have built in signage and gateways to make sure that as people drive by, along the boulevard, that they don't miss the opportunity to know that there is a rich and a wonderful and active neighborhood in the area. So we want to be able to do that by tapping into the heritage that is already in place. It's not just a characteristic of what the related group does, which is really support the local artists that are here, but it's also about building upon your existing characteristics and your culture, history, and heritage. So we want to make that part of the new environments, the new places, the new plazas, the gateways that are going to be part of this community. This indicates the number of parcels that we are evaluating as part of our proposal, about 44 acres. And we have created 3 distinct districts, which we call phases. And what we find that is important is that wherever you go, whenever you travel, that you begin to find the richness of the depth of the elements that make a community, an active community, a rich community, full of cultural resources that we find that you have here. We want these sub-districts to also have very particular characteristics, so that as you go from different districts to other areas, that you find the richness and interest that are associated with these new communities and neighborhoods that we visit. Phase, you can see here, as it was identified in the RFP, all the uses, commercial uses, living environments that are townhomes, multi-family, as well as live-work, are going to be choices for people to be able to live in this area. We're also proposing a new hotel, office space that is going to be adjacent to the highway, about 168,000 square feet. Also an expansion to City Hall, in what we call the Civic Mixed-Use Campus. And also a commercial uses in the form of retail shops, coffee shops, restaurants that are going to activate the life of MLK, which we think is the heart of this community. You can see here all of the different uses defined, and we go into what we call phase 1, which is the MLK Gateway District. This one district is important because it's located right across from the future commuter rail station on Dixie Highway, and it's really where you see the front of MLK Boulevard, and that's where we will have it rich with sidewalks and streetscapes and shops and restaurants to be able to activate the life of the neighborhood. And just south of that, we also will have multifamily and mixed uses that are going to have commercial uses to activate the life of MLK Boulevard, with a series of open spaces, pedestrian walkways, greenways, courtyards that are going to present opportunities for passive and also recreational opportunities for people that live in the neighborhood. Just north of MLK, we find that the scale will change in some areas that will meet the zoning code in place. We will have townhomes. We will have also 3 to 4 story multifamily units, as well as an important component of commerce that is going to be right at the entrance of the future commuter rail station. This is a rendering identifying that view from the new commuter station into MLK Boulevard. You see there we have identified a potential location for a gateway sign, calling it for Innovation District, with outdoor space, activities that can be planned and programmed for music events, farmers markets that are right at the front of that community as we enter what we call the heart, which is MLK Boulevard. Just south of that is where we are proposing to enhance what you currently have, which is a civic campus. We find that we need to reinforce that with an expanded city hall, with plazas, open spaces, also outdoor spaces that can begin to activate and bring people together in what you already have, which are your cultural facility, the library, and the city hall. We are proposing there in purple, you see that on the west side, an addition that is about 108,000 square feet to City Hall that will enhance the presence of City Hall along the main entrance of the city, and reinforcing as well the connectivity that is going to have to the rest of the assets. There is a new garage that is being proposed, just where all of us park right over here. And that is envisioned to have some retail so that it can also enhance the life in the street of this cultural civic center. Adjacent to the highway, we have the Southwest District, which is truly a town center. It will have office uses, hotel, multifamily as well. The characteristics of it is that we're going to have places that people can walk and people can enjoy, plazas, beautiful streets that will be able to link all of this area. And we found that it is going to be very important for us to begin to use and utilize this park atmosphere that is not only going to connect all of the components of the project, but is also going to help, visually to link and enhance the life of people that work here or people that live here. This is a view from I-95 looking east. You can see there the office buildings on the on the left side of the drawing, with residential and mixed uses with ground floor retail in a park space that is going to link all of these districts together back to MLK Boulevard. You see the hotel, which is on the right-hand side, right at the entrance on Atlantic Boulevard. That is going to really define the entrance into this district. Again, reinforcing the idea of a neighborhood. All of these different uses are going to work together to really create an active and vibrant community in this area, which brings us back to mobility. We find that with the presence of the transit hub that is on MLK Boulevard and the future train station that is right across on Dixie, that we can begin to add characteristics and mobility options, that would include bicycle, pedestrian walkways, and just, a multiple elements of greenways and plazas that are going to help mobility in general, where people of all ages can feel safe and comfortable to be part of the life of the street. And finally, what we want is to, the big component that is going to tie everything together is this idea of open space and green spaces. We find that this is not only going to enhance the sustainability aspects of this neighborhood, but it can also, is going to beautify it. And beauty is important in the life of a community. And we want to make sure that we're going to provide different choices of these types of open spaces. Some of them passive, some of them are about connecting, and some of them are going to be recreational spaces that are also going to be part of the living environment of the neighborhood. These are some images of spaces that we could potentially have in as part of our proposal. A little bit about our work. We're currently, we have a lot of experience with civic facilities, currently working on the Village of Bar Harbor for their new Village Hall, same as City of Oakland Park, It's part of a mixed-use development, a new city hall development, and multiple cultural centers that we have provided. One on the right is the one in Little Haiti. We're very proud of that work and is highly utilized. And the other one is in the Westchester Cultural Arts Center, which is just opened about a year ago. We're not new to your community. We have worked in the past here. We were the architects of the new Pompano train station, and also the architects of the high school right down the street. So we know who you are, and we're very proud of the work that we have done for you in the past, and hope to have an opportunity to work with you in the near future. Here you can see our client is Brightline. So we have a lot of experiences of doing these new stations. Our work includes Fort Lauderdale, downtown Miami, right now, as well as the new one in Palm Beach and Aventura. And this is a view of the development that is looking west. Dixie is right on the edge. And we find that we really can together build a tapestry of different neighborhoods and districts that are going to make this into a wonderful destination in a community, in a neighborhood that we all can be part of. We look forward to hearing your comments after our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharia. So, as I mentioned earlier, what we do is we specialize in public-private partnerships such as this initiative, and as part of that work, we have a lot of experience in community outreach, right, and community engagement. I know some folks approached me earlier prior to the meeting and kind of asked about that. And I said, look, that's right up our alley. That's what we do. We understand that the key to these developments being successful is that community engagement. As the mayor mentioned, this is step one, right? This is the first one. As part of that engagement, we're going to hear that feedback at the end of after the other company presents, and when we take that feedback seriously. We want to incorporate as much of that as we can, and in the times that we can't, we explain why we can't, right, and why that is not something that we can do, but it's important for us to have that feedback, and that's one of the main reasons, right, also why Mr. Crockett is part of our team, because we know that he understands the feel and the heartbeat of this community, and that's, without that, it's very hard to do these type of initiatives, because it's got to be the city, the private sector partner, and the community working hand in hand. So this is important to us, and this is how we work through these type of initiatives. Another key aspect that was part of the RFA, and that we want to make sure that you understand, is that we are sensitive to the community assets that are part of this redevelopment area. We're committed to preserving the EPAT Larkin Center. It's not going to be as part of what you saw. It will not be, torn down. It is part of, and it's been incorporated into our plan. Want to make sure that the community understands that. As we mentioned, and Saria mentions, we have some plans to enhance the City Hall campus, because the city is as part of its a request is saying, look, they need additional space for government uses, and we incorporated that into a mixed use perspective, and we hope that that's going to create and make City Hall a little bit more of a campus feel, not just some place where you might come to do city business and leave immediately, but if done in a thoughtful way, then you can have more things to do while you're doing your government business, not just come to for that and immediately have to leave. We talked a little bit about our
All right, everyone, so we will now have our second presenter begin their presentation.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Patrick Leonard, Roca Point Partners. I'm a principal at Roca Point Partners. This is Phil Mays, my partner, Danielle Handy, and Brett Yenzer. So we're an Atlanta-based real estate developer. We focus on large-scale, long-term, mixed-use communities throughout the Southeast. The Georgetown Company is our partner in everything we do. They're based in New York. They have projects around the country. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we do and what our vision potentially could be for this project. So we do a lot of things, but we primarily focus on master planned projects. And I'm going to give a couple examples of what we're doing right now that kind of lend themselves to what we're proposing for this project, just to give you a little history of what we do and kind of how we think through things. We're a development partner of the PGA Tour. About 10 years ago, we became a partner with them. They have 180 acres in Ponte Vedra, Florida. That's a parking lot that they use once a week, and they asked us, hey, what can we do with this? So we started planning with them what to do with it. We brought in partners, Foster and Partners out of London, Kimley Horn, Wakefield Beasley, and we have our partners come into these projects early on to figure out how to optimize these projects. We land planned it, and as you can see, they wanted a campus that's facing the island hole up there. That's where the TPC, the island hole is. And so we started planning this as the first phase of the campus, and there's going to be multiple phases. This is a long-term project with them. We came up with a design that they really liked, which is this, and we built it. We opened it a year and a half ago. It's the new global home. It's very impressive. The water feature we created, the water feature, you can see they're very, very pleased with how this turned out. It's a great new project for them, and it's anchoring it, and they liked it so much that we are now under construction on a second building there. They got to deal with Amazon, so they're now creating content, and this is part of the campus. So this is the first part of what will ultimately be a bigger campus, and again, we've been at it with about 10 years with them, and they're a great partner. Campus 244 is a project we're doing in Atlanta. We bought, right before COVID, about 12 acres right at 285, right next to the State Farm campus, an old building that had been vacant for about a decade. But really interesting project in Dunwoody. Again, we partnered with some world-class designers, Kimberly Horn, and our other partners. And we took this old, pretty bad building that they've been filming like Ozark and other movies in it, and we created a new campus, and we're in the process of creating this campus. So it's a 12-acre, million-square-foot campus that we're going to do a timber overbuild on top of the concrete structure. And it's under construction right now. We'll be done next year. We gutted it. It's a very neat project. It's under construction at the moment, and we're actually building the timber as we speak. And a couple of important things with this. As we build it, we're adding a hotel, we're adding restaurants. It's a 400,000 square foot building. And we signed 2 of the 3 largest office leases in Atlanta last year. 365,000 square feet on this building, which office is tough right now. And so, you know, it's a really interesting mixed use environment. And we saved 6 million tons of carbon by reusing the building. So it's very environmentally sensitive. And then the timber overbuild is going to be one of the most unique projects in Atlanta. We just won Best in Atlanta for office. We got that last week. This one's very, very similar to what we're talking about tonight, downtown Greenville. We've known Greenville people for a long time, and back in 2017 we started talking to them, or actually 2016. They have an old 40-acre mall that they've been in for 30 years, and they want to do something with it. It's right south of downtown. We were actually awarded this in 2017, but we spent about 18 months with Greenville figuring out what are we going to do with it. You know, what do you need? What are the needs of the community? What are the needs of the county? And there's courts in here, there's council chambers, and we took actually the team from the PGA to design a new headquarters for the county. And we took some similarities for the PGA building, actually the same design team, and we'll come back to that in a second. Actually, go back. And we came up with this concept, and it took us about 18 months because, much like this, it's a very complicated structure. We had to structure a new build-to-suit building. We had to structure new parking. There's about $50 million worth of infrastructure. We're funding some of it. They're funding some of it. We're getting paid back through effectively a TIF. We're partnering with land sales, and so as things get worth more, we're partnering on, you know, the county's getting some of that value creation. And when it's all said and done, this is going to be about a $1.5 billion project. It's the largest economic development project in South Carolina, and Greenville County has been an awesome partner to deal with. And so, again, some of the same names, Foster and partner, Kimberly Horn. We partner with world-renowned designers, but we also have a lot of local partners like Seaman Whiteside that do these projects. We master planned the campus. We have to redo roads, redo the whole thing. And this was our concept we came up with for the new county administrative building. Again, similar to what we did at PGA. And this is as of last week. We're almost done. They're moving in about 2 weeks. It's a veteran memorial wall we're building out in front right now. And once they move into here, we get to tear down the old mall, which we've actually already started, and we get to redevelop the entire campus, 40 acres. We're working on the lighting on it. It's going to be a really iconic thing. The county is very, very pleased. The mall had no windows on it, so they're really pleased with what's going on. Really trying to create an iconic thing for downtown. And again, the county's been a great partner to work with on this. We're also building a 1,000-space parking deck with them as part of this, and we're working on cladding it, so it's also unique and goes in. So as we tear down the mall going into next year, we've started the infrastructure work. We then become our master plan. Our master plan, we're relocating roads, redoing the whole project, and going going to start doing that. And the way we work is we tend to be the master developer on these projects, and we'll build parts, we'll partner with parts. We might build a hotel, we'll sell a hotel, or we'll partner with a hotel. We'll do multi, or we'll partner with multi-guys. We build a lot of office, we build a lot of retail. But it's all depending on sort of what the market conditions are. But we want to make sure we can get the project done in a reasonable amount of time. These things take so long on the front end. You need to make sure you can build them appropriately and they don't take forever. This project will be 3.5 million square feet, 1 million square feet of office, 250,000 square feet of retail, 1,800 apartments, and a hotel. And as we look into this, we've already signed the Whole Foods lease. We have over 500,000 square feet of retailers who would like to be in this project. It's going to be a great project. And like I said, we've already started on the infrastructure on it. And this is ultimately where we're going. A lot of neat projects. We have a rooftop dog park, which is going to be unique up on the top right. Rooftop cinema. The Whole Foods is on the left. This is the county building. And so we're under construction on that right now. Long term, again, this is about a $1.5 billion project. We're not going to build it all ourselves, but the county and us will participate in the whole project. And ultimately, it's going to be a giant tax generator for Greenville County. And as you can see, we're right in downtown Greenville, so it's a really great extension. And one of the things that was important, we're in the city of Greenville, but we partnered with the county. But it was important that we didn't name this project. It doesn't have a name because we just want to be part of downtown Greenville. And Greenville, it was important for the city for this to just be the extension of downtown and not be its own little project. So that's where we are. And as we go through this, we've been designing all the design. We have great users. We have 20 restaurants lined up. We have entertainment uses. We're going to have a mixture of architecture. We don't want everything to be shiny and new or old. We want a mixture of architecture. It's also going to be tall, shorter. It steps down around the neighborhood. We want to make sure it's sensitive to what's around us. So there'll be shorter brick buildings, taller high-rises, and everything in between to make sure we complement what's downtown. Another project we're pretty proud of is Halcyon. Again, it's a big master plan community. We bought 135 acres back in 2015. Forsyth County, which is north of Atlanta, great community, but didn't really have an identity, doesn't really have a downtown. So when we got into this, we said, well, we'd love to kind of be that for you. We have 700 residential units. We have 2 million square feet of total project. We extended a trail through it. We created the trailhead. Our first phase opened in 2019. It's been wildly successful. We were ranked actually the #3 comeback center retail experience in the country. And #2 is actually Easton Town Center, which my partner Adam out of Georgetown owns in Ohio. So it's been wildly successful. Again, some of the same names. We like to partner with the same people over and over, Wakefield Beasley, Kimberly Horn. And what we really focused on this one is, it's not really like a mall, it's more of a community center. And we have 21 local restaurants. We have the largest collection of local restaurants in Atlanta. We do 50 charity events a year. We do 200 active events a year. It's really kind of a community place. We do a lot of entertainment. A lot of people live there. We have a lot of on-site amenities. We're very dog-friendly. We're very kid-friendly. And so once we built all this and have all these local restaurants, then all of a sudden, the Morgan Stanleys of the world want to come. So Morgan Stanley's in the project now. But, those usually come later, after you create the sense of place, after you create the place where everybody wants to be and the fun spot. So, this has been very, very successful. We had over 2 million visitors last year. And some of the things we're pretty proud of, again, we have 21 restaurants. We have a lot of boutiques, retailers. More than 60% of our retail owners are either female-owned or minority businesses, which is great. Again, we're mostly local small businesses. Again, we have over 300,000 square feet of retail on the project. We activate it a lot. We spend a lot of marketing dollars out there to create the activation. We have the 2 largest cornhole leagues in the city now. Things like that do matter. It really gets people to want to come and hang out. And, people stay at our site for over 3 hours average dwell time, which is great. They stay off the road and come and hang out. Which gets us to Pompano, and we'll talk some more. My partners will talk about the rest of it, but our vision for this, as we look at what we've done in the past and what we're currently doing, is, you've assembled some interesting parcels. There are some challenges that it's not contiguous, it's not on the water, et cetera, but we think there's a ton of opportunity here. Much like the other projects, we think, again, we made some wild assumptions because, again, we haven't been talking to you guys that long. We're assuming we could potentially, fill in some gaps. We don't think we'll get all the gaps. We could land swap. We can partner with landowners. We've done this before. But ideally, we're filling it in, and what we're calling in the green is sort of phase 1, with maybe this section is phase 2. And so we've primarily been focused on phase 1, and if we can fill in enough gaps, we think we can create a really great potential downtown. It's a good size area. It lays out pretty well, and one of the things we were thinking about doing, but again, it's all, if we're selected, depending on what the city, the CRA, and everybody else wants to do, we'll have to go through a whole process. Like I said, it took probably a year and a half to go through that process with Greenville before we kind of all agreed. And again, it wasn't up to me, it was up to all the different council people. But we'd like to relocate potentially the city hall, relocate some things. And so one of the concepts we have in downtown Greenville, if anybody's ever been there, they took this old river that ran through and they got rid of the roads and made it very pedestrian friendly. And Greenville has really grown up around it. And so as we looked at your concept that you sent out with the water feature, we like that concept. So we developed a plan with a similar type concept that creates sort of an inward-facing water feature with buildings around it and developed around it. And again, we made assumptions we can fill in some gaps and we won't get them all. But that being said, we kind of created a concept similar to what we showed in Greenville, which would be a central water feature. And this would all be pedestrian friendly. This would all be pedestrian focused. Again, we would, surrounded by street front retail. And what we did is, again, all this very activated space with potentially a city hall on the end. Again, this is a concept, not the concept. It'll move, it'll change. But great open space, great activation, great green space, great place for people to come, walk the dog, go jogging, bring the kids, et cetera. Venue, potentially have live music, you can have other things, a place. Again, we look at this market as kind of like Halcyon, potential for a lot of local restaurants, but the local restaurants want enough of them where there's critical mass, you can just show up and go to any one of them, but we do think there's an opportunity for that type of thing, but they like this type of concept. Again, with just the guy with the guitar on Thursday night brings out a lot of people. As we go through this, and we're looking at the concepts, one of the concepts before is, could you do office on the end? Sure, we'll figure that out. It could be high rise, could be low rise, it all depends. And again, that was a concept from the CRA meeting, because of the frontage. And again, it could absolutely do that. And then obviously on the back side of the project, which is on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, you'd flip these buildings and try to activate that street too, because on our concept plan, we do think the street front retail on this street and the middle is kind of where we could activate it. And there's already really good, you've started the streetscape there, but it does need, storefronts, it needs bodies, it needs restaurants, it needs shops. And, we've laid this out where that, is a potential option. The orange is what I was showing as potential retail locations. The blue was potential civic uses. And again, this can all be programmed as it goes. But again, primarily focused on the green and primarily focused on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard on the top. There were some comments last time about, can the city hall be near the bus station? Absolutely. We can move it around. As we get into the programming, we can figure out, again, what's important to the city. Someone asked, can we put a bridge over that? Absolutely. That's where the red was. Someone said that would be nice if you could continue that street as a bridge so it's pedestrian friendly. And again, the concept being, vibrant, active, lively place that's fun to be, that's safe, that people want to hang out at. That being said, this concept, phase 1, was about, a little over 2 million square feet, maybe a total of 3.4 million square feet of uses. Obviously, there's a lot of apartments in the deal, like most projects these days. And again, price point, we like people that are there year round. We like people to stay there. We want people to live there. You know, it's not necessarily a super high-end luxury product that people aren't there year-round. We like people. We like the activation. We want people there all year round. In relative terms, Halcyon's 2.2 million square feet on 78 acres buildable, and Greenville's about 3.5 million on 40 acres. I was assuming we could improve on the 20 plus acres that you've assembled today. I know that the RFP said up to 70 acres. I think there's somewhere in between that I think we could do. And again, we were kind of contemplating possibly 45 acres, so similar, slightly less dense than the Greenville project. One of the things that's interesting about this project, as we look at real estate investment, you know, capital markets are difficult these days, but things are definitely shifting. And, you know, you have to have a vibrant mixed-use project. Office don't survive otherwise. You got an opportunity zone, which is great. And then ESG investing is very important. So as we look at this, we're big fans of the environmental stuff. Halcyon's the only lead neighborhood development in Georgia. We do a lot of EV parking. We do trail connections. We focus on our carbon credits. You know, most of our projects are very environmentally sensitive. The social part of it. Again, we do a lot of community activities. We did over 50 charity events at this one. We're very community focused. So that's important. And then the G, and the S and the G are harder in real estate. Again, as we look at this, we made sure our projects generally have more than 20% participation from minority contractors. The memorial wall, we made sure a veteran built the veteran memorial wall. Halcyon, we had a high percentage of, you know, it was mostly small businesses, but high percentage of minority and female-owned businesses. We think those are important. And then again, just as a whole project, everything's ADA compliant. So the ESG is always important on us, and we think as you go forward into the future, these things will just get more and more important, and we think the whole project needs to have a focus on that. That being said, I'm going to turn this over to Danielle, and she's going to go through a couple of her parts.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Handy. I am the Government Relations and Development Manager for Roca Point Partners. Before I begin, I wanted to just give you a little bit of my background. I am from Florida. I grew up in Fort Myers. I went to high school in Fort Myers. I went to undergraduate at the University of Florida. I went to Florida State University, so I am a Florida girl through and through. I spent my first job after college was working for the City of Cape Coral, and I was in the planning department at the City of Cape Coral. I was there for 3 or 4 years, and then I subsequently worked for St. Johns County for approximately 4 years. And in that time frame, I spent a lot of time in public meetings and a lot of time in neighborhood meetings and community meetings and things of that nature. So I feel very blessed to have that experience because it gives me the opportunity to really understand a lot of the nuances of these types of public-private partnerships. After my time at St. Johns County, I started working for Roca Point Partner, and that was really my first introduction into the private sector. And I would say over the past 5 years, I have had a really great opportunity to understand both sides, both the public standpoint and also from the private sector standpoint. And as we all know from the public sector standpoint, you know, we're looking at transparency and trust and processes and procedures and public input, and it's a long process to work together. And obviously on the private sector side, you're working with things like budgets, schedules, visions, and performas. So I think over this time that I have worked for, you know, Roca Point, it's been really exciting to be involved in several government projects because I'm oftentimes that conduit between the public sector and the private sector and, you know, GDOT or SCDOT or FDOT or, you know, something like the health department all the way down to city governments, county governments, really crossing so many different jurisdictions and disciplines, working with utilities. And what's really come out of that is basically being able to listen and hear what people need and hear our needs and hear others' needs and how we can work together to find a path forward that really works for everyone. And as an example of that, I wanted to just give you, one little anecdote. For our Greenville County Square project, we have this really amazing multi-use trail, Swamp Rabbit Trail, and it goes through a beautiful park. And our task was, we need to connect to this. And you would think it wouldn't be that hard to connect to a park with a multi-use trail, but it's actually quite complicated because there's so many stakeholders. In this example, we were working with Greenville County, the City of Greenville, the City of Greenville Parks and Rec staff, their engineering staff to figure out a very complicated sewer connection and water connection, the whole team to figure out ADA on a very steep slope. We had a governor's school that's focused on arts and humanities, and we spent a year going through how to secure easements and work with the state that own that school. How do you get their approvals? And it's a very time-consuming effort, and it's really important to have those relationships and to know people and communicate and figure out how do we get to this end point. And the funny part of that anecdote is that we had a garden club that was all members of the public. It was just community driven. And we spent so much time meeting with them to talk to them about what type of species do you like? What hasn't thrived in this park? What type of buffering and screening do you want in place? What about signage and lighting and benches? And I think my takeaway from that is, you really need to pay attention to the details and meet with people and hear them and understand them and work together. That's the end of my anecdote, so I'm sorry for that very long preamble, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of that background on how I think that, Roca Point really invests the time to understand our stakeholders and build that trust and rapport with, the community and our elected officials and staff and everyone else that's part of this process. So with that being said, I'll start briefly with our land use and zoning. I feel like the city has invested a ton of time and effort into establishing a really great regulatory framework to set this site up for a transit-oriented development, mixed use, walkable, safe, pedestrian-friendly, vibrant, all of the things that we come to know as a mixed-use development. I think there could be some very, minor changes to the overlay in terms of adjusting some of the building heights and some of the densities that are in there, but really in keeping with the main framework that's really been set up already through the city's years and years of hard work on this topic. As we all know, anything that's land use and zoning related, the next topic shortly after that is traffic. And in this particular case, and looking at the site and studying the adjacent roads and the trips associated with this roads, it's obviously very clear that Atlantic is a very highly trafficked right of way. And for that reason, we thought it would be best to really focus our efforts on Dr. Martin Luther King in terms of providing right in, right out, spread out across this right of way so that we can disperse those trips that are going into the site in multiple areas and have the least amount of impact really on Atlantic and also on Dixie Highway. And so I think the other part of this that's really important is, understanding that we have multiple other avenues for transit-oriented development. So right now we know we have really great proximity to the bus stop and the bus center. We have really great proximity to some future train station opportunities as well, which I think is amazing. I mean, to be walking distance from these different, public transit opportunities is really incredible. And then I think our other really, big focus on there is rideshare stops and making sure that we're including those, because that's a big part of transit and traffic as well. And part of this project is having a 24/7 community that's 365 days a year where people live, work, and play in one place. And that too will help to reduce the overall number of trips to and from this site. So if you can create that density and have people have the opportunity to just leave their apartment or their home and go down and grab a bite to eat or go grocery shopping or go to the office, Those are trips that are coming off of the road. And again, this is just to illustrate here that we have great proximity to the Northeast Transit Center bus station. We have great proximity to, some future train opportunities in this area. And again, really focusing on that 24/7 community, having the site be walkable internally so that people want to spend their time recreating on site and being able to get around really easily within the site itself. And I think another piece of this is having government and civic uses co-located. Oftentimes, it's a great way for someone to say, you know what, I need to go pay my taxes, or I need to go pull a permit. While you're there, you're able to go and also maybe go shopping or do your grocery shopping, or see a movie, and be able to do multiple things so you can really increase that dwell time. The longer dwell time on a property, the fewer trips. So, instead of somebody coming in and out of a property in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, maybe they're there for 2 hours, maybe they're there for 3 hours. And as you heard Patrick say a moment ago, on our site in Alpharetta, we have dwell times of 3 hours, which is incredible because we activate it with music, with entertainment. We have cornhole events. We have so many different things that are taking place on the property that make people think, you know what, after I grab a drink here or have dinner here with my family, I'm going to stay on site because there's entertainment opportunities here. And we really believe in creating a sense of place, have it be a social gathering place that the community really gets to benefit from, where it's not just some shopping center that, you don't want to go and visit. I think the sidewalks, the bike access, all of those things are just really important to have a safe, walkable, bikeable, development. Stormwater management, I'll just take a few minutes to go through this. Patrick discussed this earlier. We saw in the city's vision that they foresaw some type of, stormwater feature that would also be like a amenity to the overall development, and we do like that. We think it's a great opportunity to set up restaurants that have cafes, that have tables over, spilling over into these like public realms where, you can activate these areas as well. This stormwater feature would also serve approximately 1/3 of the stormwater needs, just based off of our preliminary estimates. We think overall it's probably somewhere around 1 million cubic feet of stormwater storage that's needed. On top of that, we think, if we weren't able to accommodate it in this feature, we could basically develop a system of vaults and other underground facilities to accommodate the rest of our stormwater needs. And then streetscapes. This is a fun topic for me. I love streetscapes. So just using Greenville as an example, we spent a lot of time studying Greenville, understanding in their downtown what type of lights did they use, what type of pavers did they use, what landscaping, and really getting to know that community and what they like and what works and what doesn't work. And multiple charrettes with the city and other stakeholders, and over time, a very lengthy process to come up with a set of best standards that we would implement across our site. And in this, you can see we have street lights, we have benches, we have pavers, we have bike racks, trash cans. Really covers a wide range of streetscape furniture. But again, this is all in trying to create a sense of place and make people feel like, you know what, this is a unified development, and it's very interesting. And part of that obviously is vegetation and landscaping and making sure you have canopy trees for shade, and that you have something that's colorful and interesting. So streetscapes can really, make or break, a project, and it's so important, and it's so clear that the city has dedicated so many resources along several of the rights-of-way in the immediate area. Like Martin Luther King Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard is great. The city has, new streetlights and bus shelters and sidewalks, and it's very clear a lot of time and effort has been placed in making that a very welcoming environment that will hold a future development. And just to elaborate a little bit more on that, functionality is huge. Creating a welcoming, safe environment, having sidewalks that are wide enough that you can have cafes and it doesn't feel crammed, that you can't have people walk by but also be seated out at a cafe. All of these things are really important. Lighting, making sure you have the proper amount of lighting, not too much but not too little. Again, it all helps create a sense of place. And this is, our building upon what's existing on Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, and we view this as a front. This is absolutely a frontage that needs to be activated, and it also needs to have inviting retail and storefronts that are on that first floor. And we also think this is a great opportunity for art, and we would, when we were analyzing this, we thought, this would also be a really great place to have a statue of Dr. Martin Luther King to, honor basically the naming of the road. And we think this would be a great idea, but we're also open, public art, other input and things like that. But we do believe that we have a really great framework already set up on Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. So on to a very fun topic, at least for me, utility coordination. So this is something that I really come to know over the past few years and how important it is. And it's such a long and challenging process at times, as a lot of people I'm sure can relate to. What we generally do to figure out utilities is we'll pair a national firm with a civil firm, then we'll hire some local teams for landscaping and survey and streetscape and things like that. And we'll use that team to really focus on what works locally, what's a good fit locally. And part of that is your utility coordination. So whether that's your water installation, sewer, stormwater, it's a very large effort to relocate these, and it's not good to have them above ground because it takes away from that sense of place. You don't want to see your overhead power, and you don't want to see your overhead, cable and transformers above ground and things like that. So the amount of effort and energy involved to make something look appealing because of utilities is actually, it's really quite significant. And of course, redundancy and capacity and making sure you've planned for all of these different situations is obviously very important. And another complicated piece is if you have existing businesses there, how do you make sure you're not interrupting them? How do you make sure you're not disrupting their fiber or their water or their sewer connection while you're undergoing this work? And that's something that we've really had to work hard on at our project in Greenville County. So we certainly have that experience to help facilitate that. And again, a lot of this involves coordination with multiple jurisdictions, multiple utilities, and it's about relationships and building that trust and getting to know people and understanding what their processes and procedures are to execute. And with that, I would like to pass this along to Phil Mays. Thank you.
All right. We're going to talk about, well, let me give a little background on myself first, and I'll go through my PPP thoughts and anecdotes on that story. I'll tell you, I don't know how many people in the room actually know what that means, and being in development for many years, and a couple of decades or a few now, you would think I would for how much large-scale mixed-use development we have. But I was speaking at a conference in Atlanta, and it couldn't have been about a week or two ago, and a younger person comes up to me who was out of school and said, I would like to talk to you about PPP. And I was thinking, well, is that from the COVID, like the loan or whatever that was, or what does that mean? But of course, that's public-private partnership, but I needed a good reminder on that. But my name's Phil Mays. I'm actually one of the partners with Roca Point with Patrick and our partner out of New York. Actually, I'm from Gainesville, Florida, and people are always, like, who's from Gainesville? You guys are in South Florida. That's a heavily populated area. We were always, big-eyed and wide-eyed about people from South Florida. The largest city we had near us was Jacksonville. But in any event, my dad was had an automotive garage there, and my mother was a college professor. So that's how we ended up there. But I did my undergrad there, law school, practiced for a couple of years in Atlanta out of law school. Ended up back in Florida in Ponte Vedra from 2005 to 2013, and then back in Atlanta in 2013. But during that time in Ponte Vedra, it was a quick 8 years, as I was in Atlanta now longer, 13 years prior to going there, and now 10 years since coming back. But it was pretty eventful. During that time, I got a lot of experience that has helped me out working with the governments we work with now. At the time, I ended up as a county commissioner in St. Johns County, appointed for a guy that went to federal prison for extortion. So that was that was interesting. So it was a low bar, so I think I performed pretty well. And but it was a great entree into, how because before that I'd really been a lawyer and done a lot of development, but how does the community work? And actually I knew a lot about it already. I served on a key CRA that was in St. Johns County of a really historically underdeveloped area, so I had a pretty good grasp on what was going on at that county government from being on that board, which was very active, and having done development. But I do remember walking in the first day, and I'm sure the city council folks could, sympathize with and understand you. When it's your first government, gig, you're not quite sure what to think, and there's people coming in to talk to you for sure on your first day. I had first the county manager comes in, who was very good, actually was an assistant county manager in Broward County at one point. The guy was great, since retired, but he said, we get you business people in here, like me. Not a lot of developers make it on the board, but business people, and you need to understand, and this was actually great advice, because you need to understand that your job is to run numbers all the time, and that's not exactly what we do here. Numbers are important, and how we act as a fiduciary for taxpayer dollars and so on is super important, but we're also providing public services. We're doing things that are going to make the community better. And it doesn't all relate to some pro forma you might be running at a development or law firm or something like that, and I thought that was good advice. The other best advice I had was from the county attorney, who came in and told me, he said, what the number one thing is that gets a county commissioner fired? And I said, I have no idea, but I'll make sure I don't do it. He goes, don't send any emails. And that was 10, 12 years ago. And I didn't. Actually, he goes, I suggest you have someone else answer all your emails. Don't answer any unless it's yes or no, and leave it there. And so I took that advice, especially since my predecessor was in jail at the time. But that wasn't from emails, though. That was much worse than bad emails. But that's a little background on me. And again, the public-private partnership, this one's partnership, process, politics. It can mean a lot of different things, the PPP, but it's really this public-private partnership between private industry and between governments and communities and people. And so who have we been working with over the last 10 years pretty extensively? St. Johns County, because the PGA Tour is a major stakeholder in St. Johns County. They have the Players Tournament there every year, which is akin economically to having a Super Bowl in their community every year, and they're a very large quality employer. Obviously, Greenville County, the projects we do are very integrated with the local community, so we end up working very closely with the community and with the governmental jurisdictions there. So these become very important relationships, I think, for us and for them. Forsyth County, if you all aren't familiar, is one county north of Fulton County. So it's right there. It's just a northern suburb. But we're a community center for them. So for that group, there's 5 commissioners there. We're very close with them. One was texting me earlier today, asking me how many events do you guys have at Halcyon a month? And I said, well, it's probably 20 to 25. It's heavily activated, and that's how you have a really great place. That's how you create a great place to be, is there's lots to do, and there's lots of different uses. And we know which in turn creates lots of value for all the surrounding and those landholders that are there. So Patrick touched on this earlier. We have an interesting thing in Greenville County where our partner is Greenville County, but we're in the city of Greenville. So the city has lots of things they want. The county has lots of tax revenue, and so there's always an interesting relationship there. But it's been a very good one so far. And then we have these in Georgia, these CIDs, which are improvement districts, which can be fairly large, like an urban area like Broward County, Pompano Beach, where it's self-taxing. And actually, Danielle sits on one of the boards, and I sit on another one of the CID boards. But it's this relationship that's super important to creating these successful places. And I often say, we're not really here. We can build really complicated buildings, and you saw that. It was a Norman Foster and Partners designed PGA Tour headquarters. We're on building 3 from Foster and Partners out of London, and we can build these really interesting buildings. But what we're really passionate about is building the interesting places where these buildings want to go. Where do the best office people want to go? Where's the interesting retail and restaurants for this area? The multifamily. Believe me, there's lots of multifamily when we were in Greenville County trying to figure out who was going to do the multifamily with us there, we hired a broker there and had 30 people file in, applications. That's not as hard to find as curating the retail and the the office experience and so on. And one thing, and I know I'm going off track. Patrick did a lot of these slides, and I promise you I'll cover them all. But one thing we've thought about on these large projects on these mixed-use projects that especially involve government and community, is the authenticity. And so in Greenville County was really interesting. I don't know what the other presenters did there in Greenville County when we were through that RFP, but maybe it comes to working with this group out of London, this architect, who really believed that government uses, because back many years ago, and I think coming in today, governments were the center of the downtowns and the communities. And so that firm really, and it's a large London-based firm, over 1,000 people, and doing iconic structures in buildings across the world. But they're really focused on, I think it got us focused on, hey, when you're doing these, it needs to be a really authentic and interesting place to go, and you have to have real reasons to be there, like city government or county government, county library, Larkin Center, cultural center. Those should be incorporated with what's going on, along with the coffee shop and the local restaurant and everything that you would just naturally do. And so that's kind of part of our idea as far as placing a city building as one of the backstops here. And then we've done a lot of adaptive reuse, so repurposing some of the existing buildings for other government uses. But it is quite a process. Stakeholders. Public, city staff is who we've worked with mostly at this point, mayor, council, CRA, I'm certainly sensitive to that, it's having sat on one, developer, joining landowners, it really goes on and on and on to the water management district and so on. But it is quite a process. We start, starting with the scope of the land, there's, brokers, landowners, site plan, making sure it's with the scale of the community and what the community is wanting. And, one thing interesting, and Patrick touched on this quickly, we use the best land designers in the country and in the world. And they can come in with their own designs. Elkis Manfredi, who's doing the Apple campus outside of DC, we use Cooper Robertson, and a number of other firms, but it really comes down to, and we have our own thoughts, with in-house on land planning. But it really comes down to using these professionals and our group and what the economics look like, but working with the local government and the public to figure out how is it that you want this to lay out and look, because there's a way to do that also works economically. So it's not just about bringing the best land planner in or so on. You can provide those, but that's not necessarily the best land plan for downtown Pompano Beach. That's something that the community knows. And so I think Danielle touched on that quite a bit, but we spend quite a bit of time figuring out how the land plan works for City of Pompano Beach, not for, and I don't want me to call it Elkis Manfredi, but Elkis Manfredi, who's a preeminent land planning firm. Although you want them there to implement your ideas, that's for sure. But it's driven first by the community and then by the consultants. I think part of the process and timing of how we see it laying out, into 2023, finalizing deal structure, and this is just so people can get an idea of kind of what we see as a time frame, although it can obviously change. 2024 in design, acquisitions, marketing, pre-leasing, closing. 2025 is start of construction. But that would be a kind of a normal timeline that we've seen through other projects. And so once you could actually get to an agreement on how everything lays out and what it's looking like to lay out, it's not that hard to hire the general contractors and so on. The permitting is obviously done. Can be tricky with the water management district, but we've done a lot of work in Florida, and being partners with the government is a huge help. There's no question about that. We've seen that in Greenville County, and we maintain close relationships in the other government jurisdictions, so that some of our, the best case scenario is when we're working in a jurisdiction, if the government's not our partner, and we don't look at a lot of deals right now, to be honest with you, where we're not partnering with the local government. But if they're not, that we're so ingrained in the community to where the local government's bringing up whatever it is, whatever the permits are that we need on their behalf anyway. It would be a city or a county initiative situation, not us coming in. So we stay pretty close with the local governments as far as what we're doing there in the public. Potential structures. we saw this happen in Greenville quite a bit. The land's worth a certain amount of money today. Now, if you can accumulate more and get a better sense of get a little bit more together, it's worth another amount. But the real value of these mixed-use projects is, can we curate this really interesting place to be? Go ahead and acquire or partner with as much land as we can, and then come up with an idea where we all of a sudden we have certain anchors going in, and at that point the land's worth quite for the surrounding area, the landowners that are there, and for the city's portion is worth quite a bit. But you're curating the place first, curating this environment, and then what we've seen is the numbers are there. I mean that's just any city in the country, right? If it's a great downtown or a great area place, you've made a great area town to be, obviously the values are pretty high. And so that's the kind of the order that we look at it here. We curate this really interesting place to be, and the values rise and the quality rises for the community in the area. But in the event, I know I've touched on this a little bit already, but we do believe that there are really central places for civic, the Larkin Center, City Hall, potentially library, but just government buildings, either freestanding anchors or potentially just the first level of other buildings, but to incorporate a place where people are going naturally and authentically is really, I think, a powerful way to do it. Okay. And again, I think as far as a timing, I know that was one of the questions in the RFP. Again, we'd see 2023 formalizing structures, 24 acquisitions, and so on. But it is a long-term project. I mean, there's no question about it. We've been 6 to 10 years at the other projects, and so it becomes a real partnership over a number of years. And I think in our case scenario, we work very closely with, it ends up being city county managers, and so we'd be more than happy. And actually, people do generally talk to the city and county managers we work with to make sure that we are a good partner, because we're talking about a 10-year relationship or more. And so we think that's really important. And I think we're really proud of how our group works with the communities and with the local governments, and we're happy for folks to talk to them. I think one of the important things, and I think Daniel touched on this, and the brokers will talk to you about this these days, is if you don't have a vibrant area or a vibrant project, especially in office, and you really want these high quality jobs and these jobs, then you have a real issue. And so, one thing we've done is making sure at the developments that we're doing that we get really programmed with things, local community type programs. And there's a number of different things we do. From Mother's Morning Out a couple times a week, Halloween, obviously all the big holidays, but there's events or programming going on almost every day of the week at Halcyon, and as we propose for other projects as they open. But we found that to be the real driver, of success, is people have to be going there for different reasons. And these we'll run through a few of these, but there's all these different events. Witches Night Out. There's all types of events you can have. Veterans. We did a talent show there, which I'm always amazed of how many people come to some of these things. Actually, parking became an issue. I'll tell you, we haven't run out of parking yet, but we're really. If you create the right environment, then your next problem is believe me, parking, and you can encourage. We obviously encourage a lot of rideshare, but when there's a lot to do, there are a lot of people coming. We've learned that, and then also the quality companies, values, all of that. All that follows. Sandbox. I will tell you, at this project, we had a general manager who didn't have any kids, and he hated the sandbox. I have 3 kids, and I know that kids love a sandbox. And he kept wanting me to take the sandbox out because they kept throwing sand on the ground. But you see all the parents there, and I used to be one. My kids are older now, which is great. They sit there and they're enthralled in the sandbox. So part of it is just finding really interesting things for all ages of people to do, and that allows the parents to have some time to get something to eat or grab something to drink. And it was okay with me if we were sweeping up sand every evening, I guess, because it's still there. But I always think about that when I walk by there. But we've all just, boy, dogs have become a big thing these days. So, we've learned to become very dog friendly, on these environments. In fact, we do this Santa with the pictures, and there's like huge lines to have your dogs take pictures of Santa. It's just something I never really thought of, but it happens. Anyway, a little bit. Another one I never thought of. We have some great marketing people, which is animal yoga, which sells out once or twice a week at Halcyon. They have these animals walk around. I'd never heard of it myself, but and it's really, in different communities, there's different events. And so we don't like program saying, okay, we're in here in Atlanta, we're going to program for Greenville, South Carolina, or wherever else we are. It's local marketing people figuring out what people like to do locally, and then you really, hit with those events. And then that's what we've done. And there's, again, just some more examples. And Patrick, I think it's a little hard for me to see here. Is that dwell time?
No, that's social media.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I didn't, the other thing, Halcyon's a good one. So when we started there, we were really on top of, okay, social media is that's how everybody's getting their information, these days. And we hit really hard. We're like, we just need to work really hard on our Instagram and Facebook, because that's how people know what's going on. And that's how the restaurants and the retailers and, so on, the different people are going to be successful that you're creating this place with. And so we went, big into the social media just with 2 marketing people. We weren't paying tons of money to any third-party consultants. But once you have these authentic events to the community, stuff people actually like to go to, believe me, you get an incredible amount of followers on social media, and that's how we reach out to people. Say, here's what's going on these different days, and it's just a lot of communication back and forth, and especially on a public-private partnership here in this situation, it's super important because you're also reaching out to all the folks that live here and have a stakeholder and our stakeholders in this downtown. Any event I think Daniel covered, the dwell time is really incredible if you can activate it right. And we think obviously there's a great opportunity here to do that. I think we talked about this. Yes, great office tenants are more than happy to follow. Interesting place. I will say in Greenville we've had some good office tenants up front, but I can tell you once you start getting that stuff on the ground, they will come because they don't want to be, the good office tenants don't really want to be out isolated. They want the people that are working there, and even if that's you and me, you really want to be able to walk to a restaurant or something to do. You don't want to have to get in the car. So we've seen, even in headwinds in office, we've had really good office velocity. And again, I think just talking more about community. This is, and I don't know, let me look at it. I'm here I'm looking at this from the side, so. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that the resolution was enough. So, our envision is a government building, as the backdrop, which is fairly similar to Greenville. But something really authentic like that. And then you have, obviously you have multifamily interspersed in here, ground floor being heavily activated, and really, the development is driven by what's happening on the street level, not what's happening above. You can handle that, but whether it's successful or not is what is happening on the ground level, not stories 2 through 6. That can be handled. But otherwise, that's our vision. I'm not saying that's the final vision, but it is a vision that we think would work. We think there's a lot more work to do with the community and et cetera. But I don't know, we're running a show for opening it up for questions, or you all we're done? Okay. Thanks.
All right, we're going to start with the comment period. Is going to be started by the city commissioners. And what this is about, this is just to give your comments about what you've seen tonight. You can say whatever you want to say. We're not taking questions. It's not a question and answer. This is for the commissioners, but it's really important for the proposers because they're here. They just gave their presentations. They'd like to find out what we, the City of Pompano Beach, think about these proposals. And that's really what this is about. So it's not a question. If you ask a question, you're not going to get an answer. I'm just being honest with you. The way it's going to work is we're going to ask people. Everybody's got a form who wants to give a statement. We're going to ask them to come down here, and they're going to line up on this side over here, right over here, where the line forms. And then Kervin, our city clerk right here, he's going to be calling people's names one at a time, and then you're going to be able to come up here to the microphone and give your comments.
Actually, Mayor, if it's all right, since we have quite a few folks that may have signed up, may have left, we're going to just have you bring your forms down to the city clerk, and we'll have you line up right where it says line forms here. Just please don't block the fire exit. If there's a long line and you want to wait until the line gets a little bit smaller in length, feel free to do that. We do have a timer right down here. When you come down to speak, you're going to come to this microphone. You'll have 2 minutes each. You'll hear a sound at the end, and the clerk will also let you know that you've reached your 2 minutes, and he'll ask for the next speaker because we want to be able to hear from everyone that wants to speak tonight. Now, if you want to make comments but you don't actually want to speak, maybe you don't enjoy public speaking, that public form actually has a section at the bottom where you can leave us a written comment. There is a box on the table by the entryway where you picked up the public comment form. You can just put your form right in that box and leave it with us. The other thing you may have noticed is this evening's meeting is being recorded. That recording will be broadcast on the YouTube channel, as well as a link to the recording on the city's website. There is an email address that has been set up, downtown@copbfl.com. That email address will also be with the video when it's posted so that you can provide comment through that as well. As Mayor said, this isn't a question and answer session, so if you ask a question, the respondents are not going to answer to it. This is your turn to share your thoughts on the presentations you've seen and suggestions for our downtown.
Very good. Thank you, Cassie. Appreciate it. So as I said, we're going to start with the commission giving some quick comments here, and then we're going to open it up to the public. So I'm going to start in reverse order. We'll start with District 5. Barry Moss. Barry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I have to say is it's two very interesting and very exciting presentations, and I'm looking forward to having more conversations with the developers about it and seeing where it leads us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. District 4, Commissioner Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I've written down some questions because I've talked to several people in the community about this project. I understand that I'm not supposed to ask questions, but I do have some concerns. So I'd like to list these concerns that I have. And the first one is, how are we going to relocate some of the residents that are already there in that development? We have residents that are presently living there, businesses, and some apartments. So that's one of the concerns. The next concern is about families being pushed out of the neighborhood or the community. Will this project continue to affect gentrification in the Northwest community? Another concern. Also, the need for representation for this project to reflect the Northwest community. If we could possibly get at least 20% of the African American black businesses in the downtown MLK project would be awesome. Now, there's a mix-up. I thought we changed the name from innovation to downtown. Is that correct? Are we using both? Yeah, because I was talking to people, everybody in my community, basically, they understand the innovation district. And they didn't understand downtown, so I had to say Martin Luther King downtown just to give them a location of where we were talking about, what we were talking about. So yeah, I just like to know if it's possible for the developer to at least try to get at least 20% of black owned businesses into this downtown MLK. Can they make that commitment? The other thing I had is that I've been living in Pompano Beach all of my life, since the 50s. And the way this project looked and the way we're going about things in this city, I wonder if my community will remain where it is. Sanders Park, Liberty Park, I mean, what is the plan? Because I don't know whether this is going to stretch out a little bit further than what we say it's going to do. So I'm concerned about families being relocated out of the community and pushed out of the community because of this project. And I did enjoy both projects. I thought they were very good projects. I enjoyed both of them. And I do know that we have to have change. Change is going to happen. This is something I guess we've been working on for the last 20, 30 years. I remember back in the day. But I just want to see this development work more with the residents that are surrounding the project. I know the project is going to happen. We know that. But I just want us to work with the residents to make sure that we're not pushing them out. And last but not least, I just want this project to be mindful of District 4. So my concern are the residents, and I know that we'll choose the right developer to complete this project, but yeah, my concern are the residents. I've been getting a lot of calls on this, and hopefully we can have more meetings on this to better inform the public what's going on and what to expect. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. District 3, Commissioner Fournier.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who took time out of your busy schedules to come here tonight as residents and listen and participate. It's really important. So thank you to all of you for being here and being part of this important process. I want to say thank you to the developers for your interest in investing in our city. We also appreciate that. I look forward to digging into the details, as I always do, and understanding how these plans will interface and interact with existing neighborhoods and communities, and how this is all going to work given the traffic issues that we have in our city. So I look forward to learning more about it and hearing more from the residents and what you all thought about this. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. District 2, Commissioner Rhonda Eaton. Here we go.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank everyone for coming, and I will look forward to, in the future, the same robust participation. And going forward, this is a project that is for the benefit of the entire community, in my opinion, and we need to figure out together what the solutions are to some of our problems and how we're eliminating slum and blight. And as has been pointed out, this project, this CRA, has been in existence for 30 some odd years. And so I am really looking forward to it. And the most important element of it is, of course, community participation. So we are in the concept stage, and so it's going to be very important going forward. Thank you. I'd like both presentations, but I'm just more thrilled that we are finally getting there. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Last but not least, District 1, our Vice Mayor, Andrea McGee.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out, and thank you for staying and giving comments, which is, I'm assuming, why you all are staying. And I'm very excited to be moving forward with this, and with the outpouring of interest and interaction with you guys. It shows, I see people from all over Pompano here, which makes it so cool to me to be creating this true downtown district that becomes the heart of our city. And we have had amazing success with our planning on the beach that I'm looking forward to seeing where they're doing out at the casino, and now we get to start moving forward on this. There's pieces from both presentations that were really exciting between the mass transit and the cohesive districts and retail and office space and different people they could bring in. So I'm really looking forward to having lots of conversations with the developers and see where this lands. So very cool, and again, we all appreciate you so much for spending time with us this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate it. I'm going to keep my comments brief, but first, thank you everybody for coming out tonight, and thank you for staying. But I too am concerned. I want the developers to hear this. I'm concerned about encroaching into the single-family neighborhoods. We've got to make sure these plans were developed years ago, and the commitment was made that the single-family neighborhoods, they're basically sacrosanct. We need development. We need good quality development. Everything I saw tonight looks great. I'm I question how we're going to get all the additional land that we were talking about in such a short period of time, but I know that's, private developers can do things a whole lot different than the public side. So, but overall, I think the concepts look great. Look forward to further meetings to hash it out. And just so the public understands, the commission, of course, we've got city staff that we're going to be getting together with on this project throughout time. So we'll have further time to actually talk about our comments. But this is your time to come forward and really give us your initial feelings about the presentation. So please, let's get started. Go ahead, Kervin. Start calling people out. Thank you.
When I call your name, please proceed to the podium. When I call your name, please proceed to the podium and provide your name and address for the record. Fred Stiegel.
I'm done, right? Yeah. To the very end when you tell us why. Thanks.
Fred Siegel, 289 Southeast 4th Avenue, Pompano Beach. I also serve on the Board of Supervisors of the Broward Soil and Water Conservation District. One of the concerns that I've had about this is things such as stormwater management. The second proposal did address that with the idea of the water feature down the middle. I think that was a very positive thing. I also, the placement of City Hall at the west end of the property is something else that I think is a very positive point, because one of the things that people don't necessarily look at is right on the other side of 95 from this is the Pompano State Farmers Market. There's been some concerns on security issues, and the legislature is currently looking at legislation that would prohibit any foreign land ownership within a quarter mile of an agricultural facility. So if you put the City Hall over there, you pretty much will eliminate the potential of that problem if the legislature passes it. In general, it's something people are not aware of, and people aren't aware of what goes on at the farmers market. It's the main food distribution center for South Florida. Plus, the state has moved the division of fruit and vegetables into there about a month ago, and they've also moved the fuel testing lab from Port Everglades to there. So there are several issues that do raise some security questions, and I think the putting of City Hall at the west end does help with some of that. I think both have made a great presentation, and I know the City Commission is looking at the concerns of the residents. So I will end it with that, but I just appreciate the opportunity to come up here tonight and make comment.
Ed Phillips. Good evening to everyone. My name is Ed Phillips. I currently reside at 384 Northwest 19th Street, Pompano Beach, Florida. You know, you hear folks talk about 30 plus years ago, we started the CRA, the City of Pompano, but I was around when the CRA was created. It was facilitated and pushed by then Mayor E-Pat Larkins. And I must tell you, when the CRA was created, I was on one of the first initial advisory boards along with Ms. Jeanette Copeland. So now, fast forward. My concern here, my opinion, is on a number of different levels. Job opportunities. Some folks say I'm a broken record with that, but I still would like to see job opportunities for the people who live here. Unfortunately, what happens is when we pass all these developments these days, very few of the people who live here are on those job sites. Second of all, there was a premise at one point in time that we were going to do vocational training for individuals who lived here from some of these projects. To date, to my knowledge, that has not happened. That does not mean it will not happen, that it cannot happen, but that was one of the premises that we looked forward to. Did not happen. Some of you may or may not know that at one point in time we created something called an education corridor. Some folks may have forgotten that, but I did not. In these projects, we see nothing that indicates anything about education on this corridor. And we took a lot of time to do that. Second of all, when we start talking about affordable housing and the means and what the standards are nationally, I want us to throw that out the door, out the window, because CRAs were created to make some adjustments, to make some tweaking, of which we have miserably failed to do. So I must tell you, there are a lot of aspects, a lot of components of this I'd like to talk about. Fast forward, I'm going to talk about transportation. We're going to create this mammoth projects, and where is the... 3 minutes up. So what I'm going to say is, you've heard my opinion. You understand
thank you, Mr.
where
Phillips.
I'm coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
And I do appreciate
Thank you, Mr. No, sir. No, sir. Actually, let's go, Kirby.
Rachel Johnson.
I would ask everyone to please observe the 2 minutes. It's right there on the floor. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
I see the 2 minutes. I got y'all. I'm Rachel Johnson. I'm a housing advocate, and I just want to let you guys know that I'm a lived experience. Okay, I have to tell this little story that I was invited to the White House to speak about tenant protections, eviction prevention, and just a host of other things. Now, we see around this state, all these protections are being overturned. So, 137, let's go. Okay, so just because the laws, are removing the protections for the stakeholders, we need to make sure, commissioners, that the people that are chosen are participating in the success of tenant protections and all of the protections that matter to keep the people from being homeless and pushed out of these communities, okay? The other thing is that I saw veteran wall, right? But we see them on the street. A wall is fine. Represent that in making sure they have a place to stay that's affordable, that makes sure that they're able to become homeowners, just like the rules and regulations say. The other thing is, he speaks about job opportunities. Mr. Ed Phillips, one of our veterans for Pompano Beach, okay? And so we speak about job opportunities, make sure the pay represent what these buildings are gonna cost, so that we can make sure that my mama, who worked for the city of Fort Lauderdale, can live there. Okay, so the other thing is spaces for small nonprofits who are on the ground doing this grassroots, business, making sure people are okay and coming. And, we have a nonprofit, Helping Others Make Everything Right, Homer for short, my mother's last name. And on Facebook, we have a group called Faces of HUD Housing Unity Project, where low-income housing tenants are removing the stereotypes, and we want to make sure our incarcerated are going to be housed. Okay?
Thank you.
Ray Wall.
Good evening, Ray Vaughn, 111 Briney Avenue. Got a few points here. First of all, mixed use does not work. If you want any proofs of this, go to A1A and Atlantic, the condo. Been up for 15 years, still spaces that have never been rented. The city's own garage is having problems renting space. How is parking calculated in this whole development? Because I see what happened at the fishing village. The fishing village is wonderful, except for the parking. The parking is packed. The city has had to resort to people parking on grass fields in order to get enough places for people to park. You've got to come up with a realistic equation for that. Every building shown tonight is zero lot line. Why? You got some space, use it. Nobody ever thinks about the delivery trucks loading and unloading. Food delivery, fire rescue. Why isn't there enough space shown? About the heights of the buildings. I'm seeing 5- and 6-story buildings, and yet the same developers are developing 30+ stories on the beach. Is there some reason that you can't go that high density here? Could it be that it's across the street from City Hall? Is that the problem? I mean, why, if land is valuable and we really need affordable housing, why are the buildings so short? It's not very efficient use of the property, in my opinion. Why isn't Atlantic a primary street? One of the maps up there had north-south primary streets, but no east-west. Atlantic Boulevard was considered a secondary street. Not to those of us that live in Pompano, it's not secondary. You're bottlenecking it. I still can't get a straight answer if we're going to have 3 lanes or not. It's a mess now under construction, but Atlantic is a primary route in and out of Pompano for all of us. Please consider it a primary street. I'm not seeing a lot of history in this. Hollywood and the Gables kept historic buildings. Why can't you guys? That's
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Nia Miller.
Good evening, Ayana Miller, P.O. Box 1432, Pompano. I personally am concerned with building heights. I am not in favor of tall high-rises in Pompano. We already know we have a problem with heat and climate change. High-rises cut off ocean breeze. I am not in favor of that. Pardon my questions. I didn't know the rules before I wrote my questions down. Northwest Pompano Beach is a pioneering community. The development plan is truly innovative and beautiful, but the big fish coming in means potential death of small fish. In other words, the mom and pops that have owned property or conducted business for generations, what of them? What opportunities remain for them, or will they be swallowed up? Thank you for ADA accessibility and compliance, that is appreciated. Thank you for minority and women-owned business partnering, that is appreciated. Thank you for inclusion of local artists, that is appreciated. What is the plan, the connection between BSO, which is already overloaded, crime, and increased guns in our communities at these population gathering places within the new development? What is the safety plan apart from streetscapes and beautification? Thank you.
Wayne Renier. I'm sorry. Vereen. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon. 2420 Northwest 7th Street, Pompano Beach, Florida. When I first came to Pompano, I remember pioneers that was here like Mr. Abel and others. And I just want to say to the ones that's here, these developers, you both put on a nice display. But don't forget to include our people. I heard our commissioner ask for 20%. And Ed Phillips, he always taught us about the spirit of inclusion. Don't leave our people behind. We have homeless people, we have existing businesses that are already here. Let's do something for the homeless people. We need help in our community. We do not want to be left behind. Let's include our people. What am I talking about? I'm talking about I want to see other businesses that look like me. We want other communities to come as well, but don't forget our people. Because we have pioneers that was here. And I saw a statue of Martin Luther King. This is Martin Luther King Boulevard. I would like to see that statue there, but I also would like to see a building erected in honor of the pioneers that came before me. Thank you.
Clayton Cassie.
Hi, Clinton Casey, 705 Northeast 3rd Street, Pompano Beach, Florida. Great presentation, both groups. I'm here just to talk about traffic in our neighborhood. I live just east of the tracks here. It's called Old Pompano, and we have really bad traffic problems there. So when you plan, no one mentioned in your presentation what you're going to do about traffic, and that's going to really affect us. The city's been working on it some, but even Northwest Pompano, you've heard all their concerns. They have more concerns than we have, but the traffic is pretty bad. So I wish you could do something is get a traffic engineer, and don't just have them come back to you with the report, but meet with us. We're nice people. We'll talk with you because we all have ideas what to do and how to make it work for everybody. Not everybody's going to be happy, but I think we can make it work and just help us with the traffic. That's a big problem. Thank you.
Tondra King.
My name is Tundra King. My parents worked really hard
to own their own business for 55 years in the city of Pompano. And I'm really afraid that a lot of our legacy is going to be lost. After watching the presentation from 5:30 until, I guess, around 8, I saw about 5 or 6 black people on the presentation, and that really concerns me. Are we going to be left out? Will our history be left out? I saw Pompano High School up there, which is really not in the area where this project is going. Meanwhile, a lot of our other schools are really in deplorable conditions. So I didn't hear enough about the schools and how we're going to better improve our schools for our students. And I hope that a lot of people that are from the Northwest area will be able to afford to even take their family to some of the restaurants and play areas. Perhaps you might want to consider the means to income in that Northwest area, in that corridor, where they can actually walk to some of your facility, but may not be able to because they may not be able to afford it. So affordability is really, really important to me and the surrounding areas. I know the gentleman talked about Martin Luther King. I love that idea of having a statue or other things that help us recall our history. A lot of people, a lot of African Americans came here as bean pickers, and they were the ones that were standing on their shoulders and on their backs. There would be no projects tonight if it wasn't for a lot of our pioneers. So I'm asking you to please consider that. It's very important to me. I lost my dad back in June, and so I've been on this fight even prior to then, and he raised us to stand up and to look out for the least and the lost. And for those that are unemployed, it kills me to see these homeless people, they have nowhere. So are we just going to keep building pretty buildings on top of the deceased homicides that we have not solved? So I hope we can build a better relationship with the police, get some of the crime out of our community so that we can come and enjoy these things that you're presenting here tonight. They're really pretty, but that's all they're going to be if we don't make some other changes in our community. Thank you for your presentation tonight from both of the participants tonight. Thank you so much.
Stacy Robinson.
Good evening, my name is Stacy Robinson. I am a Pompano Beach resident times 30 years plus. Thank you for your presentation, both of you. I appreciate your strides you've made in Gainesville, Atlanta, and other places too, and I appreciate what you're trying to bring to Pompano. However, you are amongst a few pioneers in this building, in this room, that have built Martin Luther King Boulevard and named Martin Luther King Boulevard from other circumstances. We see your pretty, not to be facetious, we do see the advancement of the plans that you put down. This does not promote sustainable living for anyone in those areas that you're promoting these type of changes. We see that these type of changes would push the people and the residents that currently reside there out. In regards to arts and entertainment in Pompano Beach, you are also amongst an artist. I'm an artist in Pompano Beach. There are other artists in this room. We have worked really hard to get money from the CRA for this very building that we're having this meeting in. This is the Cultural Diversity Center, which we do not have as much access to as we should, for whatever reason. Again, I applaud you for your attempts, and I applaud you for your accomplishments and everything that you have presented here today. But from what I can tell, there's not one way possible. The people that reside anywhere in the Northwest District, Southwest District, and some parts of the Southeast District and thereafter, they cannot sustain living in this. There's no way to afford it at this point. Right now, today, a studio is $1,400 with no coding updates, with anything in the Northwest District. There's no way that this can be affordable. I see that the city of Pompano would be completely changed as opposed to being diverse. We applaud you for your attempts, but I don't see that this will be a place for sustainable living or affordable living. We've created gardens, we've created community projects, we put money, energy, time into promoting building Pompano, and we love the way this looks. It does not include us. Thank you.
Corey Thompson. I'm sorry, there's no yielding of time.
Good evening, Corey Thompson, 2160 Northwest 4th Street, Pompano Beach, Florida, 33069. All I want to see is involvement with people in our community, and I see that with Henry Crockett sitting there, so I am comfortable with the first presentation, and I just want to see more. Thank you.
Jocelyn Jackson.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to say thank you to the master developers. You guys did an amazing job. Also, I would like to say I am a child from two parents who grew up here off of Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. They used to call it the Puerto Rican Projects back in the day, which was a rocky road, so dusty, I hated to go over there to visit my grandparents. But I want to say this. As a little girl, my father used to take us on the beach as a child, and you see these nice, huge, beautiful homes. And as I stand here today as representation, it's time for a change. It's time for a change. I own a home in Delray Beach. The same change taking place in Delray Beach off Atlantic, and it was beautiful. It did not affect us at all. When you're looking at the Northwest area, you see prostitutes, drug dealers, all kind of chaos going on in the community. It's time for a change. And I stand here today as me being an African representation. We buy these kids all kind of clothes, sneakers, $200 sneakers. We be the only one in the lines. So I'm not gonna stand here and say what we can't afford. That's not the truth. We beat everybody in the malls. So I'm not gonna say that we can't afford it. We do what we wanna do as people. Jobs are gonna be available when the development come through. You got plenty of jobs that come available, and don't be disrespectful. Everybody had their time, so that's more time for me. We got jobs coming through. We know we're in need of jobs for the people that are willing to work. So it's an opportunity for them as well to have jobs.
Thank you.
And stop being so rude, Vicente.
Linda Silverstein.
Linda Silverstein, 713 Southwest First Terrace in the Orchid Grove development. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in to say we're new to Pompano, and I am grateful for the beautifications and the enhancements. And I'm looking forward to playing and working and communing in this new developed area, and I know I will benefit. I wanted to just add that people who have been here for generations are concerned about the tone, the new tone of Pompano and the new look and feel, and that this idea that it's a small village with big town amenities not get lost in the design and the development, and that I invite you to be creative and innovative in keeping Pompano's personality in the solutions so that it's not just mimicking cookie cutter looks from Boca or Fort Lauderdale or Miami. I've heard other residents be concerned, how can Pompano stay Pompano and still grow and improve? So I just would invite the developers to think about solutions that keep Pompano's small fishing village look and feel, if you can. Thank you.
Sarika Peterson, she's unable to walk, so.
I love the city of Pompano Beach. First, I loved both of the presentations, and thank you guys for coming to Pompano with these ideas. Now, my input is, while I'm appreciative of the first group presenting the community partners, Mr. Crockett and Dodie Keith, specifically with Mr. Crockett, when we're talking about the Northwest District, we have to make sure that we are considering the classism that exists. While you may be partnering with more affluent blacks, there are Black people in the Northwest District who have ideas and have concepts and don't have the NFL career money to help push them forward. We need to make sure we are partnering with people who want to be a part of the process, but also building generational wealth. We cannot move forward in this project making the rich richer. If we're going to clean up slum and blight, we need to get the gentrification and re-gentrify the community by building the wealth of those at the bottom. And we're doing a bottom-up approach with this, so we have those people in the building and throughout the community who's been watching. The next thing I want to speak on is making sure that our history, when we talk about the history of Pompano, listen, bean fields. We're talking bean fields, we're talking agriculture, we're talking about those people who really toiled and built the products that a lot of the east side benefited off of, those field hands in the west side actually worked for. So I want to make sure we're paying tribute, and I want to make sure that whoever gets this are working with making sure we preserve our history and culture, that, hey, we can go from the bean field to the boardroom.
Martinez Roll.
Thank you to the mayor, to the commissioners, to the city clerk, and to both developers, master developers. You guys did a great presentation. I think one firm was more prepared than the other, to be honest. I think they had more time to prepare their presentation to present. So I think in fairness, we were kind of, not given the best presentation I think that we could have received from both parties, but they were very good. So my thing here that I want to present is that I have to agree with Ms. Robinson as well as Ms. Serica that the City of Pompano has already started innovation. They've already started doing innovation measures in terms of the arts, in terms of downtown Old Pompano, the area. So I think that if we're talking about redesigning Pompano, again, we can't forget that the median income of the residents in Pompano is $27,000, at the highest at $42,000. So when you're talking about bringing in, redesigning buildings and bringing in major, from what I saw on the presentation, major employers will consider the fact that the median income of the residents in the neighborhood is $27,000. So which means that we do have to re-educate or educate our community, educate those who live here so they can receive those jobs from the higher paying companies that you're talking about bringing in. But at the same time, let's not forget about the local businesses from the people who live here in the community that still need proper resources so they can advance as much as the city is trying to advance as well. All right, thank you. Have a great evening.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wish to give comment or input? Please bring your forms here. Please give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Latia James, 349 Northwest 17th Court. I am a native of Pompano Beach, Florida, a voting native of Pompano Beach, Florida. I just want to echo some of the things that we've already heard stated in the room. I apologize for being redundant. However, we just do want to appeal to our developers, our master developers who have made presentations on this evening. I am quite concerned about our local businesses and making sure that they are protected and that they are included in the plans. In addition to what has already been stated regarding affordability, I will say, and it's been stated already, but I want to say that there are undertones or maybe even overtones of gentrification. And we want to ensure that while these plans are wonderful, they're beautiful, they're elaborate plans, we do want to ensure that our people who are already in the community are able to afford to remain in the community. So we are asking that you keep everyone in mind when these plans are approved or plans move forward, whoever is selected to move forward with these developments. And then we just want to make sure, well, the concern again is affordability. My friend who just spoke just a few moments ago, he stated that there is a concern, stated what the median income is for the residents of Pompano, and that is a great concern for me and for others. I am a professional as well. I was educated in Pompano Beach, Florida. Go Tigers. Yes. But I definitely just want to make sure, again, that this is an inclusive plan. I am even encouraging those who are a part of the development team to be more inclusive and have some other people at the table who are representatives of our community. Thank you.
Ma'am, before you go, do you mind providing me the form?
Oh, I gave you the wrong one.
Yes, you did.
Thank you so much.
No problem. And if is there anybody else in the audience that wish to provide public comment, please line up here so that we can call your name and give your input. Lauren McGee?
Well, this is exciting. Lauren McGee Weiss, 2401 Southeast 7th Drive, Pompano Beach. This has sure come a different long way from the first think tank I sat in on about 10 years ago. Newen was there. I do appreciate that we still have a little boat in the irrigation canal. Originally there was a gondola, very romantic, somebody pushing some people around. I thought it was hilarious. But now it's a kayak, so it's more representative of Pompano already. I have a couple notes. I am in commercial real estate and development. I have been for 15 years. I was one of the first chicks to get involved in it. Now there's a lot more, which is nice. I want to say that I fully appreciate our neighbor Ray Vaughn. My son's name is also Vaughn, so automatic brownie points for you there, sir. But he's right. For the majority of multifamily developers, which are essentially apartment developers is what that means, the ground floor is always an afterthought, and it's also some obstacle that these developers try to avoid. And behind closed doors, they'll even refer to them as glass basements and intentionally build them so that they can't really be rented and they aren't even considered in their financial projections. And as a retail specialist, it's infuriating because there's nothing more difficult than trying to take one of these glass basements, figure out where the grease trap's gonna get dropped, figure out where a trash enclosure is gonna go, where's the dumpster. As an afterthought, it's too late. You have to think about it ahead of time. Let me go next. What it ends up doing, it has little or no attention to the needs of the retailers, restaurants, and small business owners that belong on the bottom floor. So most all of these mixed-use developments that are designed by multifamily-centric developers intentionally underpark these developments because it's expensive to pay for parking. Something like $80,000 per parking spot when it's a structured parking garage with pedestal above it. I'll jump ahead, but the real cost is at the expense of the retailers and tenants that.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's an important step in this process. It's a long process. We're getting there. There's going to be many more opportunities for public input. So please, stay tuned. Come out when it's announced. Let us know. I mean, don't be strangers. Let us know your wishes, your feelings, your desires going forward, because this is Pompano Beach. This isn't my plan. This is our plan to make our city a better place for all of us.